ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. Welcome to this segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. Our recitation is the fifth pauri or step from Tithi, Gaudi Mahalla Panjava. The recitation. Salok Panch Bikar man meh base, rache maya sang, ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗ ਹੋਏ ਨਿਰਮਲਾ, ਨਾਨਕ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਕੈ ਰੰਗ. ਪੌੜੀ. ਪੰਚਮ ਪੰਚ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਤੇ, ਜਹ ਜਾਣਿਓ ਪਰਪੰਚ. ਕੁਸਮ ਬਾਸ ਬਹੁ ਰੰਗ ਗਣੋ, ਸਭ ਮਿਥਿਆ ਬਲਬੰਚ. ਨਹਿ ਜਾਪੇ ਨਹਿ ਬੁੱਝੀਐ, ਨਹਿ ਕਿਛ ਕਰਤ ਵਿਚਾਰ. ਸਵਾਦ ਮੋਹ ਰਸ ਭੇਦਿਓ, ਅਗਿਆਨ ਰਚਿਓ ਸੰਸਾਰ. ਜਨਮ ਮਰਨ ਬਹੁ ਜੋਨ, ਭਰਮਣ ਕੀਨੋ ਕਰਮ ਅਨੇਕ. ਜਨਮ ਮਰਨ ਬਹੁ ਜੋਨ, ਭਰਮਣ ਕੀਨੋ ਕਰਮ ਅਨੇਕ. ਰਚਨਹਾਰ ਨਹਿ ਸਿਮਰਿਓ, ਮਨ ਨਾ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਵਿਵੇਕ. ਭਾਉ ਭਗਤ ਭਗਵਾਨ ਸੰਗ, ਮਾਇਆ ਲਿਪਤ ਨ ਰੰਚ. ਨਾਨਕ ਬਿਰਲੇ ਪਾਈਐ, ਜੋ ਨ ਰਚਹਿ ਪਰਪੰਚ. ਪੰਚ ਬਿਕਾਰ ਮਨ ਮੈਂ ਬਸੈ, ਰਚੇ ਮਾਇਆ ਸੰਗ. Panch Bikar. Important to understand what Panch Bikar is, which afflicts the mind. Panch Bikar man mein base. And the way we've translated the slok is as follows. In the mind is present the original defect or impurity. Panch Bikar man mein base. Rache maya sang. The mind is enveloped by the physical world. Maya. Rache maya sang. So our mind, which is not physical, is in fact dependent on the physical, embodied, if you will. And Nanak here says, only by association with the sad can the mind attain self-knowledge and wash itself of the impurity. So the Guru is referring to Bikar as an impurity, because the word Bikar, or Vikar, if you will, is derived from the Sanskrit Vikriti, which is the opposite of Prakriti. Prakriti has many connotations, but essentially for our purposes, it means the source, the first, healthy, normal, or, as I said, original. And Vikriti, from where Vikar is derived, is the opposite. It means, naturally, abnormality. It means illness, it means defect, it means modification or a product. So, many of our English translations have tended to render Panch as 5. So Panch Bikar in those translations would read 5 defects. Now those are normally associated with the so-called 5 evils or vices, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Ahankar. But our understanding is that Panch also means the highest, the supreme, the first, primordial. So if you look at it within the context of the Salok, it appears that the fifth Nanak is speaking about the original defect, which is Haume. We are given Haume when we take birth. We come with Haume, which is the original fracture, the original defect. It is a product. It is a construct. It is not the original thing. And it is the source of the 5 evils mentioned above. So we need to pause and reflect on the true meaning of Panch Bikar. So the original defect is the mingling of consciousness, which is chaste and pure, nirmal, with the physical, the material world. So if the defect is this, that the unchanging, chaste consciousness has now become embodied and has become the locus of change. How mein? Panch Bikar man mein basai. So in the mind is this original defect. Because of its association with Maya, because it springs out of Maya. So this is the connection of the Supreme Consciousness as an independent center of experience, embodiment. With embodiment comes the ego, and the ego is misleading. That's what is being sent. It needs to be made nirmal. Sadh sanga hoye nirmala. Or pavitra, if you will, as the word is used. Sadh sang. Sadh is the accomplished one, and in Gurmat it is pointing to the Guru principle of knowledge. We need the right knowledge to wash ourselves of this original defilement, if you will, this stain that prevents us from seeing reality for what it is. So the salok really is pointing to the original condition of the mind. This is the condition of the mind, which is a product, which is a derivation from an unchanging source. And that is what we need to transform. We need to go back. And in the Pauri, the Guru talks about the Bhagats, those who have actually realized the self and have seen the true nature of embodied existence. Pancham, this is the 5th day of the lunar cycle called Pancham, and the lesson to be drawn from it, Pancham Panch Pradhan Te. They are self-realized beings, esteemed leaders of humanity. Now you see, Panch is being used for esteemed, high. Panch Pradhanate, Jeh Janyo Prapanch. They who have understood that this world play is a parpanch, meaning it is a passing manifestation. It is a changing manifestation of an unchanging source. This is the insight that the Bhagats have. They are self-realized. They understand that they are not to identify with the world of the senses. And the Guru provides an example. Like flowers, which are of many colors and fragrances, kusam bas baho rang gano. The sensory pleasures, parpanch here, used as sensory pleasures, of the world are many and varied. But like the color and fragrance of a flower, they quickly fade away. Sab mithya balabanch. Balabanch means deceptive. They're deceptive. The experiences, the pleasure, the sensory experiences of the world are deceptive because we tend to think that they are permanent, but they are not. And that is precisely the game of ignorance. The Guru says we are so constructed as to be pierced through and through with attachment to sensory pleasure, because we are made, the senses are constructed to be a part of us. Swad moh ras bedeo. So ignorance is what informs our understanding of the world. Agyana rachyo sansar. We create a world that is based primarily on ignorance, because perception cannot be relied on entirely. It could be misleading, and certainly the senses are misleading. And the Guru laments the fact that we do not pause to reflect or to understand or to realize the nature of our experience. Na jape, na bujje, na kish karat bichar. You see, we are robotic in our actions. We are pleasure-seeking, pain-avoiding, and we do this robotically, day in, day out. We act out of a lack of self-awareness and discernment. Rachana harana simreo, manana bichar vivek. And the result is, we are assailed by fears of birth and death. Now you see, the notion of birth and death is also the result of ignorance, because the ego wishes to preserve itself all the time. Its basic insecurity is death. So we are assailed by the fear of birth and death. If we were enlightened, in the sense of being self-realized, we would see that birth and death is simply an illusion. But we live with that illusion. And it causes all manner of fear and anxiety and strife within the mind. And we engage in rituals and practices to avoid such a fate. Janama marana bhav paraman kine karam anek. We engage in, we indulge in. But we should become like the Bhagats, Maya lipatana ranch, who are not touched by Maya. In other words, the lesson here is to be in the world, but not to be touched by it, to remain non-attached while you are in the world of the senses. Quite a difficult balance. So the Guru says the Bhagat enjoys a state of ecstasy in union with the self. Pao Bhagat Bhagavan Sang. So there is a lesson here to transform ordinary experience into Pao, ordinary experience and emotion, into what Gurbani calls ras, rapture, the ecstasy of union. It is to be seen as an aesthetic, in an aesthetic sense. On that note, until the next time, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.